Welcome to The Herbal Ire, your podcast on all things holistic health, medical astrology, spirituality, herbalism, and so much more. Presented by your host, Ire Atla, medical astrologist, herbalist, and naturopath. Let's dive right into today's topic, love and light. Hello, today's episode is a soul-led conversation with Sarah Schortz, and I have edited it as best as I can, but we did have some internet issues between her internet cutting out a couple of times and mine, and then I was getting over a cold, so I tried to cut out all of the coughing that was in there, but I may have missed some, so just bear with us, but this is an episode you are not going to want to miss. We talk about everything from reiki to forest bathing to divorce and all kinds of crazy things, and it's absolutely an amazing episode. So, yeah, I hope you enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Herbal Ire. I'm your host, Ire Atla, and I have with me today a very special guest. This is Sarah Schortz. She is a multi-passionate and magical maven. Most days, she can be found designing beautiful brands and websites for heart-centered entrepreneurs, seeing Reiki clients, teaching Reiki as a personal practice for emotional regulation, healing, and transformation, or guiding others into deeper connections with themselves, natures, and the divine, with her forest bathing workshops and intuitive coaching. She resides and presides over a 55-acre nature haven and retreat space in Knoxville, Tennessee. Thank you for being here today, Sarah. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Ire.
I am so glad you are here. Everybody needs to know that Sarah and I met when we exchanged some services. She was going through a particularly rough time in her life physically, and I was going through one emotionally. So she did some distance Reiki on me, and let me tell you, it was amazing. I had a reaction that I have legit never had with anybody that I have ever done energy healing with. So it was just awesome. And she and I worked together to come up with some personalized blends of herbs for her, and it's been a great relationship since.
Thank you for those kind words. That makes my heart so happy. And it also made me remember what stood out to me for my session with you was talking about the astrology behind the herbs that you recommended. I was just so fascinated by that.
Yes.
It's really stuck with me. So thank you.
Yes, you are welcome. That's totally my thing. Love corresponding the herbs with the planets and the different signs so that you can really make sure that what you're giving your clients really works. So I'm glad that part stood out to you because that's my favorite part of what I do.
Yes. And you told me that I'm a my sun sign is Taurus, and you told me how much earth signs were impacted by the moon. And I feel particularly affected by the full moon and the new moon almost every month. And it was just helpful to know that us Taurians really feel that. So thank you. It was just like something you threw out on the side during our conversation, and it really served me.
Well, good. I'm glad. Yeah, that's part of also what I do is the medical astrology reading part. So I started actually making those more in depth now since our session, and really getting down to the meat and the nitty gritty of all of that for people. So thank you for letting me know that, because now that makes me feel even better about what I offer and how I work.
Yes.
So Sarah does Reiki, but she also does forest bathing. Why don't you explain to us a little bit what is forest bathing for those listening who maybe don't know?
Yeah, so I like to talk about forest bathing as a practice that really varies from person to person and place to place. It originated in Japan in the 80s. And I think it's funny because sometimes it gets called the ancient art of forest bathing. And as someone who was born in the 1980s, I don't like to think of myself as ancient. So while humans while humans have been knowing that being in the woods is good for them forever, the term forest bathing, or shinrin-yoku as it's called in Japan, was coined, and the practice that I descend from originates in the 80s. But yeah, so I think about it like yoga, where it just, as it gets taught and it's spread, it gets reinterpreted by those who teach it and those who practice it and those who share it. And I like to say there's really no right or wrong way to forest bathe, as long as you're not harming yourself or another person or any of the beings in the environment. And that includes the plants and the animals and the rocks and the earth, like as long as you're being respectful. The way that I guide forest bathing is probably unique to me based on my training and who I am and the way I experience the world. So I'd like to say that just because if you ask 5 different people what forest bathing is, you will hopefully get 5 different answers. But the simplest way to think about it is just immersing oneself in nature, in what you can see and smell and hear and feel and touch and taste if it's safe to do so. And sometimes folks will ask me if it's like a mindfulness activity, and it is and it's not. We're really trying to get out of our minds and into our bodies and into a sense of connection with nature. And sometimes calling it a mindfulness practice can interfere with that.
Definitely. That sounds awesome and amazing. And I know for me personally, when I make time to like get out of my head what I'm doing for the day and out of that busyness and like make time to go out into nature, into the woods, that it's just so much better for me personally. My mental health is better, my spiritual health is better, and then ultimately my physical health is better, because when those two things are taken care of, my physical health just seems to naturally come along with it. So
Yes. Same.
yes, I find that when I don't spend enough time out in nature, I actually feel like physically ill. Like my body needs so much time in nature.
I can relate. And what I found, so I facilitate these forest bathing workshops, and what I found is that people really want that, but we've, as a society, just moved so far away from spending quality time in nature that a lot of folks feel uncomfortable in nature, or they just don't know how to connect. They might experience anxiety, whether it's because like all of a sudden they're in nature and it's quiet and they can hear all of their thoughts. Or they have time to process something that's bothering them, or they are uncomfortable with insects or animals or things like that. And so what I do is create a space that acknowledges and welcomes all of that. And I use a series of practices to really help people, to guide them into having a relaxing, transformative experience, helping to quiet their mind, helping to get into their bodies, and teaching them how to do that on their own too.
That makes sense, because I find that you're right. We're so far removed from living in the society that we do and in big cities that don't have a lot of green space many times, or any nature at all, that's been legitimately obliterated by all of the housing and the city developments, that people have really lost that connection to like how to just get out in nature and just be there and enjoy it without, you know, feeling like they don't know what they're doing. Like it just, there's such a disconnect between who we are, how we're cosmically designed, and the fact that like we belong in nature. Like we're a part of nature too, just like nature's a part of us. And when we don't spend enough time in it, it really does cause a lot of health problems.
Yes.
And it's weird to me to see so many people so disconnected from it, because we in my family are so connected to it. Like we are outside constantly. That to me, it's just really like strange when people are like, oh, I've never been camping, or I don't go hiking, I've never been out in the woods for more than like 5 minutes. And I'm just like, wow, how do you live life like that? It's so foreign to me that it seems weird when people say that.
Yeah, well, and I've noticed like I've been meeting some people that don't have a connection to nature. and maybe don't have a deep connection to themselves. And I find that they tend to use more substances, which I don't really want to go off on this. Maybe I shouldn't have even said that. You could take that out. But I've just been noticing that people that don't have a strong connection to themselves or to a spiritual connection to something meaningful tend to use a lot more alcohol, and they're looking to feel a deep connection, or they're looking to numb the pain or the something that's missing from not having that connection. And I like to suggest that nature is a really healthy natural substance that we can
Mhm.
take in and achieve really blissful states of being. But it is a practice and it does take time. You can't just go outside and be like, I'm here, nature, bliss me out.
Yes. And I think that's the other thing that people have, like, problems with when it comes to that is we live in such an instant society now. Like you can drive anywhere pretty much no matter where you live, any time of day, and instantly get food from a drive-through or instantly get money from the bank via the ATM, instantly get a response from one of your friends when you message them on any of the channels we have. Everything's so instant so that when, you do start getting back to nature and reconnecting, you get out there and you're expecting an instant reaction, an instant, yes, this is great, life is good now, and you get that, and it doesn't happen that way with nature. Nature is slow and thoughtful, and she doesn't force anything. And so I think that people get discouraged, you're right, because they get out there, they're expecting this instant reaction and it doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, and we're talking about connection. That's what creates we're creating connection with nature, and connection requires time and relationship. And it's like the same, it's just like a friend or someone that you're dating. Takes time to create the connection that makes you feel secure and loved, and it's the same thing with nature. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. It's definitely about connecting and not just like taking something from it. It's not just a take on your end relationship. It's a give and take on both parts. Nature gives to you and takes from you, and you take from nature and you give back. And so that's a symbiotic relationship. And that takes time to cultivate.
Yeah.
So tell me about your property. I know we've talked about it before, but like you have this amazing land that you own a piece of and get to spend all this time in.
Yeah. So I live at it's called the Hickory Hedge, and she's called the Hickory Hedge. It's 55 acres of just beautiful, diverse land. We have a cedar forest, and we have a hickory, it's a shagbark hickory forest, and there's walnut trees, and there's field with these huge ancient boulders that remind me of like a moor somewhere in Scotland. And we have a little mountain, and oh, it's just really beautiful. It's 20 minutes from the city. I live in Knoxville. It's 20 minutes from downtown. And it's just a beautiful, peaceful oasis here. I'm
Yes,
just
that
staring
sounds
out the
lovely.
window. I'm just staring out the window at a cedar tree right now.
Yes, that sounds beautiful. Our property definitely is diverse for a desert, but not as diverse as that. Like we don't have trees, which is not uncommon out here. So most of the trees that you will see are like pinyon pines, which are like these little scrubby pine trees, and they just don't get very big, and that's mainly because, well, we live in a desert and there's not a ton of water. So we have some of those, not on our property, but like surrounding us. And then we have a lot of sagebrush and a lot of cactus and a lot of different I don't know, there's a bunch of other plants and stuff that grow. Some of them we know. We have lamb's quarter, um, all kinds of things. I had a random barley plant sprout up on my property this year. And I was like, where did you come from? Because we didn't plant you. So I don't know if it came from like someone's neighboring property, like the wind caught it and brought it from one of the farmers. I don't know. It was super cool. We also had one random corn stalk sprout up too and give us 2 ears of corn. So It's really, yeah. So it's definitely diverse as far as like deserts go, but it's just not as much of that. So if we want mountains and trees and things like that, we have to literally drive to those. So it's available. You just gotta make time to go do it, you know?
Yeah. You're reminding me of our or one of our conversations we've had before, and I was telling you about this place that there's also like so many wild medicinal plants here. Like it just
Mhm.
blows my mind, all of the plants that are just growing here in abundance. We have yarrow and Queen Anne's lace, and I was about to say mullein, but mullein was not here. I had to plant her, but little prunella vulgaris, self-heal,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
lots of red clover and sorrel and Usanea, which I'm probably saying wrong. Lemon balm everywhere.
I love
There's
lemon
a ton
balm.
of other ones too, but oh, I was surprised this summer I found wild bergamot, and it just is so beautiful. It's just a funny, interesting, beautiful looking plant, the flowers, and so that was really fun to discover too.
I love that. Yeah, I do have medicinal plants on mine. Like we have the sagebrush, which is a form of sage that is also medicinal. So we have that. We have lamb's quarter, which is amazing if you get like stung or bit by something. You take a couple of leaves and you chew them and you smash it over top of it, and it helps draw out the like venom, poison, or keep it from spreading further. So it's really nice that way, which we do have a lot of venomous snakes. So that's kind of nice to know we have lamb's quarter available if we need it.
Yeah.
What else did I find? I found it's a form of it's in the same family as oh god, my mind just went blank. It's a grain is what we usually say amaranth, but there's some medicinal amaranths, and we have quite a few of those on our property as well.
Whoa.
And so yeah, it's like super, and they're all like just wild, naturally grow here. You know, like this is they were here way before us. So I just let them do their thing, and when I need some, I just walk outside and I talk to the plant and I ask them if it's okay if I can have a little bit to help heal somebody, and they are always willing to help. So they're almost always the answer is yes. And I follow the Native American tradition where you don't pick the first one that you see, you find one and then you find a second one from there and then you pick that one, so that you never take the first or the last of a plant. So we do that and teach the kids that too. So we do that and it's really kind of cool and fun. Like sage is wonderful for respiratory issues, and there's been a lot of respiratory issues going around in most of the country lately. So it's been nice having access to be able to just walk right outside and grab some sage and make a tea from it. So I know you do Reiki, and I know what that is because you and I did a session, but maybe some of my listeners do not. So if you could explain to us what that is and how it works.
Okay. Yes. So Reiki is a form of energy healing. And there are lots of different types of energy healing out there. And this is the one that found me and resonated for me and really works for me. It's just a very gentle, it can be done hands on or hands off. It can be done in person, or like you and I work together, it can be done over distance. And if someone's never had a session, it feels different to different people depending on what they need and what they need in the moment and what's happening in their life. It can be really supportive for physical issues, emotional issues, mental health issues, even like cognitive issues, just like helping the brain kind of relax and focus. It's a lovely support for anxiety. It can help with sleep issues, and it definitely can help foster someone's spiritual journey. So, like with forest bathing, there's like no right or wrong way to receive Reiki. Sometimes folks go into like a really deep meditative state. Sometimes they fall asleep. Sometimes their mind races the entire time, and that's like okay also. The Reiki is always doing what it needs to do regardless of the experience that we're having. Sometimes you can really feel it in your body, like you can actually, even over distance. And I'm curious if you had this experience. Sometimes when I'm doing distance Reiki, I visualize that we're together, and I visualize that I'm putting my hands on the person's body just like I would if we were together. And some folks are able to actually feel where my hands are without me telling them. I'm curious what your experience was with that, if you had that.
I had that for one section in particular, like for the upper part of my body and like my legs, I didn't really know where you were or what you were doing. But when you reached my pelvic region, like lower abdominal pelvic region, it was like all of a sudden I felt like a block of ice had formed there. It was super cold. I could feel like coolness moving from like the bottom of my, as I was laying on my back, from the bottom where I was laying on my back up through and like out of my body. And I just remember becoming like super cold. I was laying there like shivering. You would have thought I had some kind of like horrible fever, the way I just suddenly was like super chilled and super cold and could feel all this like coldness like moving up and out through my pelvic region. I ended up having to find a blanket and like put it on me so that I could finish the rest of the session with you because I was shaking so hard. And that is the first and only time that has ever happened in any kind of energy healing session that I have had. But I'm telling you, since I've had that, I felt fabulous. So I don't know what you did, but it worked.
Oh, I remembered that. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And often I don't know what I did either, because it's not me. Like I just get to be this like vessel that the healing energy flows through. Like I think of Reiki as this like the energy of divine love, however someone relates to that, whether they call it God or goddess or anything. I have a friend who calls it the cosmic muffin, like whatever, whatever resonates just for you, but the energy of pure love being flowed through me to the person that I'm working with for whatever they need most in that moment. And my work is to be as clear of a vessel as I can. And I do that by doing my own Reiki and taking care of my body and trying to sleep enough and trying to spend time in nature and do all the things. And I'm a human, so I struggle with that also. And I'm thankful for friends like you that help me remember and learn and grow and take better care of myself. But that's so interesting because your experience, like I was saying, it can be so different for people. I don't know that I've ever had anyone else have the experience of being cold, but for whatever reason, that was what happened for you. Some people feel really warm, some people feel really light. Like it just depends. And I always believe that the person is having like whatever experience they need most in the moments. Another really cool thing that happens quite often, I would say, is I get these like guided visualizations to take people on, and they just happen in the moment. It's like I'm watching a movie screen and I just describe what's happening, and the person sort of goes on this journey. Often it's like to a sacred place, and they meet someone. It's often like a crone grandmother woman who's there to remind them or something, or love them or comfort them and support them. So that can be really fun. And the other thing that I really like to talk about is Reiki for ADHD. Folks who are
Yes.
neurodivergent, support for emotional regulation, support for other magical unicorn healer people who, or just sensitive, highly sensitive people who feel so much. I identify as that. I feel so much in my body, and I'm my brain likes to spin out and worry, and then I feel it in my nervous system. And so for me, Reiki as a personal practice has been like one of the most beneficial tools that I have to support myself in regulating in hard moments, and just overall, like, I believe it's like retraining my nervous system and my brain to function better overall over time. And again, like we were talking about being in nature, it's a practice, it takes time, it's another relationship. But the longer I do it and the more I practice, the more overall balanced and healthy I feel. And so I teach Reiki for personal well-being. I think I call it like Reiki for emotional regulation, transformation, and personal magic, or something like that. So I teach that so that other people can access that for themselves and not always have to outsource their healing or that connection to a practitioner. I think it's really, really beneficial and helpful to be able to see a wise and safe energy healer or any other kind of healing arts practitioner, but when we need it, and alongside our own self practices. But I think what's best for all of us is to know how to support ourselves on a regular basis so that we need less help from others.
Yes. I like that. That is exactly kind of how I've always thought of it too, that it's not necessarily the person that you're seeing who's doing the healing, but it's something that they're just like channeling that's helping them. And then learning to do it yourself sounds so awesome because it's not always easy to find a practitioner that you vibe with enough that you feel safe doing some of that stuff with them. Or maybe you're one who likes to have it done in person and you can't find anybody nearby, so learning to help yourself that way too would be awesome.
Yeah.
Just having that connection. Yeah. That's definitely part of like what I teach my clients too, is that I'm great and all, and I'm a wonderful resource that you have when we're together for sure. But like a lot of what I do is teaching them to like be able to do this stuff on their own. So like learn how to trust their bodies again and listen to them and speak the language of symptoms so that they're not having to just every time something pops up, come find me again or, set up a whole thing to come work with me again if that's, not necessarily in the budget or something they want to have time for at this moment. They can do a lot of it themselves because they've learned to, listen to the cues and whatever else their body is saying to them. So I like that part too.
Yeah, I think so many of us are learning how to trust ourselves again and learning the wisdom
Mm.
that we've forgotten as a society. Or I personally was very well trained that I am not to be trusted, that someone else knows better. Someone else knows more, whether it's a doctor or a religious figure or a teacher. I wasn't taught that I have this deep knowing and intuitive guidance inside of me, that my body has wisdom, that nature has wisdom. And it's been a journey to remember. And I think at first people just need permission to listen to, they need to know that they can find the answers inside themselves or the wisdom inside themselves, and then that they're like permission to do it. And it takes time. Again, man, everything we're talking about takes time, which we don't really like as a society. But
Yes.
it's like it's a relationship with ourselves that we may not have. And I'm really thankful for the teachers and guides that I've had along the way that just kept reminding me over and over and over again that, like, I know as much as they do, they're just helping me remember, or they're just holding space for me to connect and remember, because I didn't know how, and I was always looking for someone else to tell me how to do it. I think that's like like those those Instagram graphics that are like 5 herbs for, like, I don't know, allergies. Like, we love our, like, 5 things for this, 5 things for
Mhm.
that. Like, we just want to go find an answer. Whereas if you sit down and you're like, let's say it's a headache, right? Here's 5 herbs for headaches. But if you just sat down and asked yourself, like, what do I need for this headache right now? and then just listen to the
Mhm.
body. And if you've never done that before, then you might be like, well, I don't know. But once one becomes practice in that, you might realize, like, I need a nap, or I need a cup of this kind of tea, or
Mhm.
whatever it might be that an Instagram graphic is not going to tell you.
No. Those checklists are great to maybe give you some ideas of things to, like, use when that happens, for people who maybe are just getting started with really becoming in tune with their bodies, but ultimately they're very generic and they're not going to be exactly what you need at that moment, potentially. So, learning to listen to your body and sitting and asking it, what do you need right now? Like, and it will tell you, you just need to learn how to hear the language that it speaks and have it translated in your head into words that you understand.
Yes. Yes, and I think, it probably sounds so weird too. So I think, like, just even like naming this process for people to be like, "Oh, I didn't know I could do that," and then, like,
Mhm.
acknowledging, like, you're probably gonna feel really weird the first time you do it. You don't have to tell anyone you did it. And,
Right.
um, yeah. But, like,
Yeah,
eventually you learn to identify it and trust it.
yeah, for sure. And I think it's just like a disservice that we're done too, is that we're not taught that our bodies are amazing creatures, amazing beings that have been here for millennia. They are innately wise beyond our wildest imaginations. We couldn't imagine, ever how much they know and how capable they are. And so we're just really not ever taught how capable our bodies really are of healing themselves and telling you what they need and all of that stuff. So our bodies are capable of healing way better than anybody has ever, you know, told you or permitted you to even really truly understand.
Yeah.
And learning to tap into that knowledge that your body has and just trust that it knows what it's doing, it will change so many things in your life.
Yeah. I just keep
So
thinking it's a process though. Everything's like a process.
it is, yes. Everything is like I tell my clients, everything's a journey. It's not like we don't get from point A to point B like it's a race, right? We're not sprinting there. It's a journey. We're walking. One moment we might be running the next. We're taking 3 detours along the way. Like there's no straight line from, where I am now to where I want to be. And I wish there was sometimes. I'm sure all of us do, but I think it works better when you don't have that straight line because you have the moments along the way that you need to have so that it really is something that you really embody then and you learn and you know and you trust by the time you get to the end what your body can do.
Yeah. I think the detours also help us be good guides for others too. Like, we can help the next person behind us on the journey avoid some of those detours that we took. And then some of the
Yes.
detours are really necessary. We learn
Mhm.
lessons that we needed to know. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the detours, you feel like they were a detour, but when you look back later, you realize that it actually wasn't a detour. It was the part of the path you were supposed to take, and going straight might have been the detour instead. But at the
Yeah.
moment, when you're in it, you're like, "Why are we going this direction? This is totally not the way I should be going," you know? But,
Yeah.
yeah, learning to trust the process and the journey and the, steps along the way is the not always easy, but it's the best way.
Yeah.
So, Sarah recently has been through some major life changes and a few, detours of her own along the way. And she's just been dealing with it in a way that I find super encouraging and enlightening and something that everybody needs to hear because when we go through changes in our life, society dictates that we're supposed to act a certain way or behave a certain way or anything. And Sarah's been breaking that mold and going through it in her own way. And it's just super magical watching it. So, would you like to touch on some of that for us, Sarah, about what you've been doing and what's been happening?
Yeah. Um, about 5 years ago, my life as I knew it started unraveling, we can say. The little strings got pulled out one at a time, and it began by people that were very close to me and important to me beginning to pass away. And it was like one after another after another. I was 35 or 36 at the time, and 12 people died within 3 years of each other.
Wow.
And at the same time, I was starting to become ill inside of the religion that I was a part of. I would go to our gatherings, our communal church gatherings on Sundays, and start feeling sick. And I would feel sick until about Thursday, then I'd start to feel better, and then I would go back on Sunday and start to get sick again. And I was at the same time, my intuition was really starting to come online. I was starting to discover some spiritual gifts or healing gifts about myself that the religion that I was a part of said were wrong and bad. And I was really at war with myself. I thought I was wrong and bad. And because, like we were talking about earlier, I had outsourced all direction for my life to someone else outside of me. I was letting an institution tell me what was right and wrong and what I should be and who I could be. And I decided that even though I thought they were right and I was wrong and bad, that I just could not keep doing that. And I was gonna at least explore the idea that maybe they could possibly be wrong and I could possibly be right about who I am. And it was just like a little teeny tiny sliver of possibility there. And so I left the religion I was part of, which meant leaving the religious community I was a part of, which was really my entire network of support and friendships and community. These were the people that I had raised my baby with, and the people that I lived my life with, and I even lived in very close proximity to. We had all moved into the same neighborhood, and so it was a big shift walking away from that. But what happened, the further away that I moved from that religion and those people, the more space began to open up between I'm wrong and bad to like maybe who I am is okay, to actually who I am is really, really beautiful, to wow, my gifts are really special, and I'm beginning to understand that I'm here to use them. And then I moved into really cultivating my gifts and practicing them, and then creating a professional practice because this is who I've always been. I just thought that who I was wrong and bad and broken. And I on top of being, but I'm a neurodivergent person. I didn't know I was highly sensitive. I didn't know that I had ADHD until about a year and a half ago. So, and then I started to really like cultivate my gifts and learn how to practice them, and to seek guidance from wise elders and teachers. And then eventually was able to like, it was very scary to sort of, one of my friends calls it coming out of the spiritual broom closet. And when you're coming from a religious, I was coming from a very opinionated religious context, and so I was very scared to put out there what I was doing. And I've been able to move through that. And again, this is like a 5-year process, so to now where I'm just like, Yeah, I'm an intuitive healer person. That's what I do. Like, I don't care if you don't like it. Like, um, yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. I
um,
resonate with so much of that because of my own background in a really restrictive religious household growing up. And
yeah,
really feeling like who I was wrong and that I was really suppressed in all of that. And part of my journey has been like discovering that who I am is not wrong and embracing, like you said, that yeah, I'm an intuitive, green witch who helps people with their hormone health through the power of herbs and medical astrology, which to many people seems like woo, but it's not. So, so yeah, I get
yeah,
that.
yeah. And I've been able to, there was a period that I call my healing cave where I just like for like 2 years, and it coincided with COVID, of where I just sort of like was in my healing cave. There was a lot of grieving that had to happen. I do like to acknowledge that because like I'm on the other side now, and my life is so magical and beautiful and full of amazing people, and I get to do this amazing work and travel around doing forest bathing, and it's just
Mhm.
it, and I'm alive, and like it comes through when you meet me. People are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm being me. um but,
Yes, it makes a huge
but
difference.
yes, but I do really want to acknowledge the cave in the middle, and the cocoon phase, the everything I knew had to die away, and the it I had to be in the grief and the letting go and really, really process it, really, really feel it.
Mhm.
Um, and this is a place where my tools were my lifeline. Working with herbs, being in nature, learning to practice Reiki on myself. Like these were the things that got me through.
Mhm.
And that is why I share those with the people that I get to work with, because I know the power that they have. Um,
Yeah.
but the thing that you were alluding to about like how I'm moving through differently. So um I am in the process of divorce. And after all the death and leaving the community, and we wound up selling our house and moving our way from our beloved home, because it just was making me ill to live in close proximity to the people that we used to be, in relationships with. And I I felt I had become a shell of myself because of all of the things, but in part because of my marriage. It just wasn't serving me. And this is nothing about the person that I was married to. It's like the relationship was not working for either of us. And we felt a lot of pressure from religion and society to like try to make it work for our kid. Like, and what was happening was everyone was miserable. My nervous system was constantly dysregulated. My child's nervous system was constantly dysregulated. And nobody was happy. And but I found myself clinging to the marriage because it was like all that I had left. One of the deaths that I moved through was my father's, and I'm an only child. And now I'm a daughter in a world without a father. And I think a lot of us are looking to husbands sometimes for some of the comfort and security that we maybe longed for from a father if we didn't get it, or like ways that our father loved us that we are still seeking. And I think that's what I was clinging to, was that this person will love me unconditionally forever. And he would have in his way, but not in the way that my wild soul needed. And so we finally acknowledged that. And I like to tell people too, we did 2 years of very intense therapy that was based on attachment theory and really understanding our dynamic and what was happening, so that we came to the point where we really understood each other and could look at each other's stuff with
Mhm.
compassion and really know that there is absolutely no way on earth that we can be together and be happy. And so when we decided to get divorced, it just changed everything. We're like, we get along so well now. We live on the same piece of property. He lives in another house a quarter of a mile away from my house, and we have a 10-year-old son, and he gets to have both of his parents on this property, and neither one of us has to like fully solo parent. And we still have like a support person in our lives, but we're free to be ourselves and do our own thing, and heal and grow. And so for me, divorce has been this incredibly freeing, beautiful process, and I just become more alive and more myself every single day. And I like to talk about it very publicly because I want other people to see that it doesn't have to be something terrible. I think that letting relationships that don't work anymore go is one of the best things we can all do for one another. And the ending of a relationship isn't necessarily a failure. So, and I like to talk about too, just like we called it conscious uncoupling, and we're working together to be like very loving, connected partners and co-parenting also. And I think that's a really important thing to model to the world also, that like people can come together and parent this child that they had together in ways that look very different from the typical stories that we're told, narratives that we see.
Yes, I love all of that. It's such a good way to see, like you said, like a relationship ending doesn't have to be like a terrible thing at all. And my divorce, unfortunately, was not anywhere near like that. And I wish that it could have been, but I was leaving under very different circumstances. Um, than that. There was a lot of abuse and stuff that had been happening on, his part toward me, and so it was such a different experience than you're having, and on top of that, I was also going through, like, just becoming a mother and dealing with really, for the first time, like, truly knowing I was leaving behind the religion that I grew up in, and so it was like a whole grief process. I was like losing a relationship and I was losing who I was at, or taught that I was at my core. And I was like losing all of this stuff at the same time. But I'm telling you, it's just like you said, you come out on the other side and it's just like amazing. Once
Yeah.
I got through that grief and I really sat down and processed it and worked everything out, like it was so much better. I really love that for you too. I'm glad that you guys have found a way that works for you and that works for your kid as well, so that everybody is in a spot that's healthy and happy as much as possible when you're going through this.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you sharing your story. Thank you for sharing it with me and everyone listening. And um, yeah, it's just so incredible how everyone's experience of life in general is so different, but
Mhm.
going through things, there's just so many different ways to move through an event in life, and depending on all the factors. And um, I think, for it to be the way that our journey has gone, it requires both parties to be really willing and committed to doing their emotional work and healing. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, not everyone is there. And I will
Yeah.
say that I experienced some of what you described inside of the relationship before um, the healing journey was begun by both of us. And so um, I think I experienced a lot of the death and the grieving inside the relationship over the years. We were
Mhm.
married for 11 years, and to where when I got to the point that I actually was ready to file for divorce, I had done a lot of the grieving that
Mhm.
that happens for most people. I had done a lot of that before. Um, But it's interesting too, we're like 6 months in, and there's always these moments, or these moments keep coming up of like that surprise me. There's like a little ping of grief, and it's not really about him. It's about grieving what was, like the
Yeah.
family and the
Mhm.
connection. It's not about him. Like we're in the holiday season and we celebrate Christmas, and we have these like really funny family traditions. We have the annual blowing of the tree every year. Get a tree, and for some reason my spouse really liked to get out his leaf blower and blow the needles. And it just became this thing. And I'm like, oh, we're not going to get a tree this year. And we're not going to do the blowing of the leaves. And we're not going to celebrate Christmas as a family with our son, or maybe we will in some new way, because we are open to doing things together, but it's just not that. Or when we
Yeah.
split up our kitchen stuff, and he was like, this is mine and this is mine and that's yours, and it was just like, oh, a dagger in my heart, because it's like these were ours for 11 years and there's no more like us.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's funny how like it's each, I don't know, it's just like waves of stuff to work through.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think again, it's just part of like that journey we were talking about. This is also a journey. It's, a journey of a different type than maybe like physical healing, but you have that emotional and spiritual healing to do from
Yeah.
all of this. Because you're right, it's like you've been with that one person for so long that it's hard to see your life without them being there now. And it's not necessarily even the person you miss, it's the idea of having that other person there all the time, and having a life partner sometimes that we miss more than the actual person themselves.
Yeah, it's like the life that we had made together. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We miss that. We don't necessarily miss the person. And it's okay to miss the person too. Some of us do miss the person, and that's totally fine. Everybody's journey is different. But I think sometimes when we're in a relationship, whether it's good for us or not, we kind of get those rose colored glasses and we don't see things exactly as they are. And so when we leave, we miss sometimes the idea of what we thought our relationship was and not actually what it truly was. And so as we go through that process of grieving and realizing, our rose colored glasses have fallen off, it can cause some pain and some heartache along the way.
And feeling all the feelings involved in that, anger, and yeah.
Yes.
um
Yeah.
Wondering, I know I went through a phase of like angry at him, but also angry at myself. I'm like, how did I let myself experience that? Why did I do
Mhm.
that? And like beating myself up. And what I've learned is that like I was doing the very best I could in that time, and so was he. um and that's all I could do then. And now I'm where I am, and I'm doing the best I can now.
Yeah, exactly. As we know more and we learn more, we can do better.
Yeah.
But we did the best we could in the moment with the tools and information and knowledge that we had. And so you
Yeah.
can't beat yourself up for that. As hard as it is sometimes, you're right. There's a lot of guilt sometimes that goes into it. Mine was a lot more guilt and anger at myself because I was like, why did I stay as long as I did? Why didn't I leave sooner? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I see that this was happening, and my life before I brought another human being into this world. Like, there was a lot of like anger and guilt at myself and not necessarily even directed at him. It probably should have been directed at him for some of that. But honestly, I was more upset and mad with myself for not seeing it. And it took a lot of like therapy and self reflection to realize that I didn't see it because that was my life growing up. That was
Yeah.
my life with my parents. I didn't see it because that was normal to me. I
Yeah.
didn't see the abuse, I didn't see the stuff happening because my life growing up, that was it, that's what we did too, and so it was completely normalized, and so I didn't see the glaring red flags that were waving in my face,
Yeah.
because those red flags were green. That's how I was raised, and so, that was a lot of other grief then too related to the fact that I was like, "Oh, I guess I have a lot of other stuff to deal with now too." And it was a lot of working through a lot of stuff. And, it's like I said, I've come out on the other end and it's amazing now. And my life is fabulous. And I love my spouse that I have now. He's amazing and I wouldn't trade him for anybody. But like, if I hadn't done that work that I did after I got divorced, I don't think the universe would have given me who I have today in my life, because I wouldn't have been ready to receive them.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to like grow into the person that you want to be and the person that is capable of being with the partner that you really desire, that your soul really desires. And I had a very similar experience of like having to do a lot of work around just the underlying issues, because we don't not see it. We don't stay in these relationships and situations and religions and friendships and work environments because we're a sucker for punishment. It's like we don't realize until we are shown that it's like programming from childhood running on autopilot. And yeah, once you start peeling back those layers, it's whew, it'll take you
Yeah,
back. But thankfully
it
there's so
will.
many great resources for learning about how childhood trauma and family of origin stuff really impacts us, and how to begin to move through the world differently and heal and grow. And I keep thinking about how plants were one of those resources for me too. I keep thinking about mimosa during grief. There's a lot of mimosa trees where I live, and so I harvested some this summer and made some tincture. I think I tried to make an infused olive oil, but I'm pretty sure I messed it up and it went rancid. But the tincture worked. I think I made tincture and maybe like a cordial with the mimosa. But like just how the herbs are there for us to along
Yes.
with grief and the anger, and they don't like fix it. I'm doing air quotes, like they don't make it go away like a magic pill. They support us and they nourish us and they walk with us inside of our bodies. And I know that must sound so bizarre to someone that hasn't had this experience yet. But really they become like these dear friends holding our hand in spaces that no one else can go with us, because no one else has experience, even if they have the experience of losing a parent or losing a partner or a child or going through a divorce. Like they might be able to empathize a little bit, but no one can be in our experience with us. But our plant friends, our plant allies, they can be in our experience with us.
Yes.
And just hold us. And yeah, and that was my experience.
Yeah, that's the part of plants that I really love, is that they are an innate being. They've been here for millennia. They have all of this wisdom that they can teach us, but the only way to learn that wisdom is for that plant basically to give up part of its life to you. Let you pick part of it, or let you pick all of it, depending on, how much there is available. And then their death helps bring like life back to you, and you can learn their wisdom and their lessons, and they can be teachers and they can be healers and they can be, like you said, they can walk alongside you. But it takes them losing part of themselves to help you, and it's such an amazing like symbiotic relationship. And it's why I love plants so much, because there's so much you can get from them, not just physical healing, but spiritual, emotional, mental. They can help you on all levels. And when you ingest the whole plant as it's designed to be taken, not just pieces of it here and there, then you get all of those things at once. It's a very holistic way of helping your body.
Yes. I need to say thank you to the plants more. You're reminding me. Just like walk around like, thank you, tree. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, cultivating that relationship with them, because when you do that, they will teach you things too. Because you can sit and just commune with the plants. I like to go to the forest and just sit by like a tree and just sit there and let our vibrations start matching each other. And it's amazing what you can learn from that tree, just sitting there in like a meditative state with your vibrations and theirs on the same level. It's
Yeah.
so cool. That's one of my favorite things to do. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, because that's just an amazing way, like I said, to look at things, and it is kind of magical in a way, and to show that there's other ways to separate from people besides what we get as the norm in society, where there's fighting and horrible court dates and cops being called and people are screaming at each other, and it doesn't have to be that way. There is a way to go about it that can be peaceful and as loving as possible and that supports everybody inside of that relationship.
Mm.
So, thank you for sharing all of that. That hopefully helps some of my listeners to also see that it's not just a one way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And
So,
I would also like to just like send like so much love to people that might be going through something similar and don't have
mhm,
a person like the person that they're separating from is not able to do the work they need to do, because I have friends in that situation and I know how hard and frustrating it is. Um, so just sending lots of love to folks that are dealing with unhealthy partners that they're with or in the process of separating from.
yes, yes, for sure. That's always good to put out there. So, where can people find you, Sarah, if they want to do a forest bathing session or get some Reiki or
Yes. So the easiest place to find me probably is on Instagram, and it's at the Salty Wild, and there is a P in front of the S because that is what 10 years ago version of me decided to name her business. um, Also, you can find me at thesaltywild.com. Also, wildlightwalks. I'm sorry, no, wildlightco.com is my forest bathing, but really you can find everything on my Instagram.
all the links will be in the show notes. So if that is changed, then that will be in the show notes for y'all. So thank you so much for listening today. I appreciate you all being here. If you're interested in hearing more from Sarah, check her out on her Instagram. She has amazing posts and she does all kinds of cool stuff on there. Check her out at her links. If you want to hear more from me, I was recently on a podcast called the Soul Savvy Business podcast, and I was interviewed about my using my spiritual side to run my business and how that works together in my business. And the episode is called The Healing Journey. So I would love if you would check that out. The Soul Savvy Business Podcast. The Healing Journey is the name of the episode. Check out Sarah at all of her links, and I will see you guys next time. Love and light. That's it for another great episode of The Herbal Ire. Tune in next week for more valuable content with your host, Ire Atla.